Hi everybody and welcome to the channel. I am Richard. Today I'm gonna bring you with me back to ancient Rome. Julius Caesar have just been killed and now we want to take his place. I'm gonna show you 44 BCE from Grey Forest Games. This is a 2 to 5 player game and it's around 30 minutes of gameplay per player. I'm going to show you the setup of this game. I'm going to give you an overview and go through the rules. So once you have seen this video, you will understand what this game is about. Now this is a Kickstarter coming out this year, so the game I have here today is a prototype. And the finished product might look a little bit different from what I show you here today. But I really just want to give you an idea of what this game is about. So let's take a look at it. This is the setup of the main board. It should be placed in the middle of the table for every player to easy reach. Up here we have the alliance tiles, and based on how many players you are, you should have a certain amount of tiles with a certain letter on. Down here in the left corner you can see a letter. And if this is a 3-player game, we should have A, B, C, D, E, F. But if this had been a 4-player game, we should have had C to H, and for 5 players we should have E to J. Before we put out the alliance tiles up here, we should sort them by letter. Each stack should contain 3 tiles, with the same letter in each stack. We then need to start with the lowest letter, A in this case, going from left to right, meaning that we have A, B, C, D, E, F at the end. And as you can see up here, it is split up into 3 different eras, meaning that the first stack will belong to era 1, the second one era 2, and the third one era 3. Then we need to place out the recruit cards. This area here are cards that you can recruit later in the game. We should start by placing out 1-star recruits and place them in their proper space. As you can see on the card, we have a symbol down here corresponding with each place on the row under the star. This is what the cards looks like on the back, and this is their front. Each card have a certain amount of stars and should be placed under the corresponding row. Again, based on how many players you are, you should have a certain amount of cards. It will say on the spot where you should place the card how many cards you should have for each amount of players. This is a 3-player game, so we have 8 cards in this stack. But over here, for example, it says that we should have 3 cards for 3 players. So this stack contains 3 cards. Once you have placed out the recruit cards in their corresponding piles on the right spot, we put out some loyalty cards down here on the loyalty space, and lictor cards on the lictor space. And again, you can see how many cards there should be placed. Here we place the denarii. Next step is to place out some structure and statue tiles. These tiles look like this on the back side of the tile. And again, depending on how many players you are, you should take a certain amount of each tile at random. This is a 3-player game, so we take 4 of structure 1, 2, and 3, but 6 of the statues. If this had been a 4-player game, we would have taken 5 of the structures and 7 of the statues. And if it was been a 5-player game, we would have taken 6 of the structures and 8 of the statues. Once we have taken the correct amount of tiles, we need to place them out on their spaces on the board. We start by taking all structure from era 1, meaning the ones that only have 1 pillar, and place them out on the space where they correspond. Down in the right corner you can see a symbol. This symbol matches up with a symbol on one of the structure places. you place out the structures where they belong, and then you take the structures from Era 2 and place under Era 2 face up, and the ones from Era 3 under Era 3 again face up. Now again, this is a 3-player game, so we will have some empty spaces because these belongs to 4 and 5 players. Then we need to take the statues with this background and place them face up at the statue space. In this game, there are 3 Senate tiles. We should pick one at random and put that one on the Senate space on the board. The other 2 go back into the box. Then we need to take the face marker looking like this and put it on the building face. This marker will be used in the game to move around to show the different faces. Next to the board we also place all the resource tokens. We have the social influence, the political influence, the military influence, and the support influence. Each player then needs to pick a character they would like to portray as, taking the screen of that character. On this player screen you can see the name of your character, but you also got some game help information here to help you keep track on what's going on in the game. You then take the player board corresponding to the character you have just chosen and place it above your player screen. You get 5 starting denarii, 13 architects, and the player that has the best Roman nose gets to start being the Imperium Maius, and also gets the 3 alliance tiles from the first era. Then each player takes their player score marker in their color and put on 0 on the score track. So Julius Caesars have just passed away. Peacefully and quiet, right? And now you come in the picture because you want to take control over ancient Rome. You portray as one of the mighty leaders trying to take Julius Caesar's seat. And you will do this by building structures, gaining allies, and taking recruits. And you will also do this kind of by working with either of the other players. But there's really no allies in this game that will last because there's a lot of backstabbing going on. This game is played out during 9 different phases, but don't be too scared because the phases works kind of quick. We move this little face marker here around the board, we do our actions, and when 6 years have passed in the game is over, and hopefully we have some kind of winner that have been able to use the recruits, use the structures, the statues, and their little architects here to build up their own empire and have taken control. The first player is the one that has the Imperium Maius token, and each year this one will shift between the different players depending on how well they do in the game. But before we start to play, we should take a look at the player boards here, but also the structures. So this is a structure from Era 1. This one here is from Era 2, and here we have one from Era 3. But in this game we also have statues. Now if we look at the structure itself, we can see that up here we have a name. This is the name of this structure. We also have a Imperium value. This is what you earn during endgame scoring. Down here we have a symbol showing which phase this may be activated, but also where to put it on the board, because each structure is put and used in different phases. The lightning bolt here means that this structure actually activates right away, and it only activates one time when it's built. In the middle we have an effect, and this is the benefit the player gets for activating this structure. But a structure may only be activated once during its activation phase each year. There are many different structures in this game, and they all do a bunch of different things and give you different benefits. They will give you extra endgame scoring, they will let you recruit, they will give you money, And you will need to have these reference sheets next to the table for all players to actually understand what each tile does. Because new players won't be able to learn this by heart from their first game. You will need to have a reference sheet. And every time you put out new tiles on the table, well, let the players have a look at what they can actually do. But this is a cool way to involve the game because there's actually so much things that each player can do. Before we look at the gameplay, let's take a look at the different recruits to see what the cards and symbols actually mean. Here we have a title of the different recruits. And here we have a field. This is what line of field the recruit belongs to. Here we have the social, military, and politicals. The ones that are called lictors do not have any fields and can be used in any one field. Down here we can see the cost it will cost you to enlist this recruit. Depending on which color the different cubes have, you will have to pay with different types of influences and loyalty. So for example, here you would need to have 5 white cubes. But on this one here you would have to have 1 brown, and the gray one can actually be any cube. Meaning that you could, for example, use a white. Up here in the circle we have something called authority. And this value is used during the resolution phase. Not every recruit has authority, as you can see on the other. These ones here, they only have ambition. And this is a square box with a value inside. Some recruits have 1 ambition, but some of these recruits also have 2 ambitions. Again, these are used during the resolution phase, but I'm gonna show you that in a bit. And down here we have an ability that will take effect during the resolution phase, but not all recruits have this ability. So we have done the setup, we have looked at the cards, and we have looked at the structures. Now we move into the actual gameplay. But what is this game about? What are we trying to achieve? Well, remember at the start of the game I told you that the player with the most Roman nose got the IM tile, the Imperium Maius tile, from now on called the IM tile. The player that got this in the start is now the one that has control over the 3 different factions: political, military, and social. And now it's the other player's job to try to take over this control. And they will do this by having the most authority. Remember on the different cards you had the symbol up here with a circle? That was authority. The ones down here in the square is ambition. You can turn ambition into authority by using influence, but I will show you that in a bit. So during the resolution phase, the player that has most authority in one of the different factions will win that tile away from me. If I don't manage to keep them myself, because I also have a chance to play out different cards and charisma to try to get the most authority and keep the tiles myself. This will all be done and planned behind the screen so no player can see what you actually do. I will start by putting out whatever I want to do on my board, and then the other 2 players will have their chance to negotiate and hopefully agree on how they will play out their game. But in this game there are no binding deals, so we are in for someone getting screwed up. The first phase in this game is the build phase. So let's take a look at that. So the first phase in this game is the build phase. Starting with the player to the left of the IM, the players now have 2 choices. You can choose to build a structure and spend denarii, the same amount as stated in the bottom left corner of the structure you would like to build, and place one of your architects on the available spaces next to the structure. Now you own this structure, and you can choose any available structure on the board to place your architect as long as there is a free spot, and that you haven't placed an architect there already. The Forum, Castellum, Villa, and Temple are the only 4 structures that you can place multiple architects on. Instead of building a structure, you could also choose to activate a structure's effect of a building that you own in the phase that you are in. Meaning that if you own, for example, this structure and we are in the building phase, you could now activate its effect. This does of course not count the buildings that have the lightning effects, because they activate immediately once you build them, remember? Once the building phase is over, we take this cool little pillar here and we move it down to the production phase. Now we do two things. The first thing is that each player gets some resources. We get 2 support tokens, 1 military, 1 social, and 1 political. And each player gets this on every production phase. The resources that you acquire should be placed on your player map on your character symbol. Now, step number 2 is that the players that have any structures in the production phase gets to activate their ability. Now, no players here have managed to get a structure here yet, so nothing happens. But if we had a structure here that we own, we now activate that ability. After the production phase, we move into the Enlist Phase. Here, again, we could choose to activate one structure that we own. But instead of activating a structure in the Enlist Phase, you can of course enlist recruits. And you do this by paying the right amount of resources stated at the bottom of the card. Remember, they have a cost, and of course all costs needs to be paid. In the beginning of the game, you won't of course have that many resources, so you will have to buy the cheaper ones. But as the game moves on, you will get more and more resources, and you will be able to get the more powerful cards. But let's say, for example, I recruit the Quenzo up here, I would need to take this card and put it on the board in the correct space. This one is political, so I place it in the political field. And then we move into the discard phase. Here, each player that owns a building in this area gets to activate that structure. And then we need to discard some cards and cubes. In this game, you can only have a maximum of 7 cards and cubes combined. Meaning that if you succeed this limit, well, now you need to discard something. And you can discard some cubes and put them back into the supplies. Or you can discard a card, taking this card and putting it face down next to your player area. And now they belong to your collegium. And in the end game scoring phase, these cards will count into your scores. So once we have discarded what we cannot keep, we move into the I am commit phase. This is where the Imperium Maius starts to commit their cards and do everything they can to keep the power in the future as well. And remember, we have the 3 different fields, and you need to have the most authority in each field to keep the power on that field. The way we play out this is that the IM takes up their player screen and put it in front of their player board. The tokens here should still be visible for the other players to see, but everything that happens on the player board is now hidden in secret. But what can you actually do when you play this phase? The first thing you can choose to do is play any number of face-up cards in one of the 3 fields. Remember that each card needs to be placed in its correct corresponding field. And to turn the ambition, these squares here, into authority, we need to commit support to the cards. 1 cube per ambition that you want to convert into authority. Meaning that if you put 1 support on this card here, only 1 of the ambitions will become authority. And if you have several cards on top of each other, the first card will take the support first, and then it will go on to the one in the bottom. Meaning that if you place 2 support on these cards here, it is only the top card that will turn their ambition into authority. You can also play cards that already have authority. The one with the round 1 here already counts as authority. And the lictor here can be placed in any of the 3 fields. You can also choose to play charisma. These can be placed even if there's no cards placed in the fields above. The charisma here will take effect in case if there's any draws. If there's any cards that you do not want to use in this phase, you can put them in your storage area and use them in the upcoming years. However, they will still count in your future discard piles. So once the IM is done with their commitment, they may not touch anything on their player board anymore. Now they can basically just sit there and relax. Their job is done for now. And we move into the suitor negotiation phase. This is where the other players, called the suitors, get to negotiate on how they, in the best possible way, can take control over 2 of the IM's tiles. And there are actually some rules here. I mean, there's no commitments that are binding, but everything is done with the player screens down, meaning that all players can see what cards are on the player boards. You can change the state of the cards that you have on your board, meaning turning them up or down. You need to keep it as it is for now. And if you have any face down cards, you may tell what it is, but you do not need to show it. You may not barter over resources, and you cannot support your own troops directly. You can only support the other suitors' troops in the upcoming phase. When the suitor negotiation phase is over, we move into the suitor commit phase. The suitor commitment phase is also played out behind the player's screen. Just like the IM, they can play any cards they would like to get the most authority possible. The suitors can also choose to play out support influence, but they cannot place it out on their own troops. They need to place it out on the other suitor's troop, placing it in one of the fields down here, depending on which player you would like to support. In this case here, Cleopatra is supporting Brutus and giving his social troops to support. And just as the IM, the suitors also gets to play charisma, in case there is any draws. And just like the IM, they may also store resources. Once the suitors are done with their commitments, we now move into the resolution phase. This is where all players simultaneously show what they have actually done. And it's time for us to look at the boards to see which suitor have supported which suitor and what kind of authority they have actually gotten at the end. And this is where people usually get a little bit mad at each other because some agreements might have been broken. But for example, Cleopatra, she actually gave Brutus 2 supports, remember? And she gave it to his social troops, meaning that these ambitions up here actually turned into 2 authority instead. The players will also receive 1 loyalty card per cube that they have supported another player with. Cleopatra here, she supported Brutus with 2 cubes, remember? So she will get 2 loyalty cards. It's good to be loyal sometimes. And now the IM places support influence to turn their ambition into authority. But unlike the suitors, the IM do not get loyalty cards from being loyal to themselves. If anyone have played a loyalty card, it's time to activate them now. These cards place a support influence from the supply onto your next ambition in this field played. Each loyalty places 1 support for the suitors and 2 supports for the IM. But if any other suitor have already supported your character, the loyalty card will not take effect. The 4th step in the resolution phase is to activate your recruit's abilities. And we do that by starting at the top card and going down. In step 5 of the resolution phase, it's time for each player to calculate how many authority points we have gotten in each field. The IM can also calculate in the alliance tiles above their player board. And now it's time for us to compare some results to see who has the most authority in each of the 3 fields. The one with the most authority is the one that wins the tile. If the IM has the most authority, they also get a denarii. If there's any ties between the different players, the charisma down here are the ones that can determine the winner. If, for example, the IM has a charisma but the suitors does not, the IM wins, and the other way around. If there's still a tie between the suitors and the IM automatically wins that battle. And this is the way we resolve the fields going from left to right. Now we need to look around the table to see who will be the IM in the upcoming year. Will it be the player that have already been it, or will a new suitor take its place? To see this, we need to see how many fields of power the IM still controls. In this case, I control all three, so I will definitely be the I am the next year as well. But in a case I would have lost one, I would actually still have kept my power because I need 2 or more. Meaning that if I lose 2 or more, well, I also lose the title and I am no longer the I am. So who is? Well, the suitor that has the most authority gets the tile and also gets the title in the future. If there's ever a draw between the suitors, we need to check their charisma. The suitor that has the most charisma is the one that gets to take the tile and become the I am in the upcoming year. And the player that gets this cool little tile here gets to choose, either if they want 1 denarii or 6 Imperium. Imperium being endgame scoring. I know what I would have chosen. The last step of the resolution phase is that the players get to activate any building that they own within the resolution phase era. Now we move into the recess phase. This is kind of like the cleanup phase of the game and makes us ready for a new year in the beautiful, beautiful Rome. First thing we need to do is to give each player 1 denarii. Unless you are the player with the most architects out on the board. In that case, well, no denarii for you. We also need to clean up our player board and remove any influence tokens that we have not used. These goes back into the supply. Any cards that you have played during this year goes into your collegium. Also, any alliance tiles that you still have should be placed next to your playing area, face down, as a saving pot. These will be your endgame scorings later on. The player that is the I am now receives next year's alliance tokens. We also need to refill the table with new structures for the upcoming year. Again, placing the correct tile on the correct place. And this is the way the game moves on through the different phases. We enlist recruits, we get structures, hopefully we get some good cards to place out here, and then we do the negotiation phase, the cleanup phase, until all of the alliance tiles are gone. Once they're gone, we move into the end of game scoring. But before we do that, we play one last full build phase. When that is done, it's time for us to calculate the scores to see who have actually won. We first need to look in the upper right corner of the alliance tiles that we have acquired and add up all of these points. We then do the same thing with our lictor and loyalty cards. In your collegium, you need to add up the total authority and ambition value on your recruits in each field. And you earn Imperium equal to twice the lowest total. You earn the Imperium stated in the upper right corner of the structures that you own. And if you own any statues, you now activate their effects and get points from them as well. You also get Imperium if you have alliance tokens in your collegium that matches up with the Senate tile. Lastly, you get 1 point for each denarii. This game really gets to your mind because it forces you to doubt everyone you have around yourself. You simply do not trust your friends because you do not know if they're on your side or not, because they have their own agendas. And the game is highly strategic. You need to have some kind of plan. Either you go all in and trying to get as much money you can, recruits or structures, but you need some kind of plan as the game is quite strategic. And it will take you some time to learn a way to actually win the game. But that's what makes it fun. It's not an easy game where you just sit down and accidentally win. No, you need to have a battle plan. This rulebook is a prototype, but I must say it's quite good. I mean, there's not that much text and there's a lot of pictures showing exactly what they mean. And the rules themselves in this game are not that complicated. Where this game becomes a little bit more complicated is to actually learn the different structures, the different recruits, and how they can help you in your strategy. But I think that's also a part of a good game. I mean, you shouldn't just be able to sit down and win a game by straight luck, right? You need to know what you want to do and what strategy to use to become the next ruler of Rome.
There you have it, people. That was 44 BCE.
From Grey Forest Games. This one is, like I said, highly strategic, highly planning. You need to really get your things together. You need to know what you want to do to be able to win this game. But it shouldn't be easy to become the Emperor of Rome, right? It should be a little bit hard, and it should be a little bit of a challenge. But once you get the hang of it, this game is really good. And once you get a hang of how actually you should control the different strategies, how you should use the different structures, well, you're gonna have a blast. Like I said, it's not a hard game to learn, but it's a hard game to master. So if you want to check this out, there will be links down in the description for the Kickstarter and also for the game, so go and check that out. If you like this video, people, please give me a thumbs up. Please throw in a comment for me, tell me what you thought about it. If you like my channel, people, please subscribe to it. It gives me a smile on my lips every time I get a new subscriber. And until next time, people, please keep on spreading that board gaming love I know you all have. Peace.